name is Julie. I'm from Honey Hoolies Designs, and today we're going to be having a look at a method of picking up stitches while you still have live stitches on the needle. I use this method for things like picking up stitches for the body of the sock in my ruffle butt sock. So in this example, you start at the top of the ribbing here, so it's a top down sock, so we cast on our ribbing, work that ribbing, and we have purple stitches that are live on the needle at this point. We pick up stitches in the color we're going to be using for the body of our sock, which would be green in this case. We pick those up from the inside on a second needle, and that allows us to carry on working our ruffle on the purple stitches and cast that off, and then we've already got live stitches for the rest of our sock, and we just carry on doing that. It also allows us to do things like pick up stitches for a pocket. So this is a pocket on my Ladies Lunch Dates cardigan pattern. The pocket is a side seam pocket, so your hand comes in from the side. So if I was looking at this from top down, so there's my hem, so this is the pocket here. My hand goes in from the side, and this is done seamlessly on the front, so there's no indication where that pocket starts or finishes on the front here. It's actually along here, and it finishes in that blue one down there. And on the back, you can see that in this case, I've used a completely different color for the stitches at the back of the pocket compared to the front of the pocket. And yet we can't see any indication of that black poking through there. Beautifully invisible, even though that's what I used to pick it up. And see them all hidden away in there. Being a little bit Wednesday in an Enid world. So I'm going to show you how to do this on a piece of flat knitting, but it works equally well for flat knitting, such as that pocket, or in the round, such as for the ruffle butt socks. So I have my wee sample here, and I'm just going to use the blue for the stitches that I pick up, so that it's a nice visible contrast. I just get some yarn off here. Now, in some cases, the pattern will ask you to work to a certain point before you do that, or to slip stitches onto a second needle, or use a second needle to pick up the stitches, etc. Do what your pattern says to do. In this case, I'm actually going to leave all of these stitches live on here, on this current needle, much as I would do for the ruffle butt sock. For the pocket, we actually slip stitches to a certain point and then pick them up. Either's fine. So I'm not going to pick up all the way across here. I'm going to start part way across and stop part way across, as if I was doing a pocket. But if you were doing this for all stitches, you simply start after the first stitch. So you'll see why in a moment. But you'll start right here. So the stitches that you're picking up will be offset by half a stitch. So they're going to sit in between the stitches that are currently live on your needle. And we're going to work with the right side of our work facing us. And we're going to work top down. So we're going to be looking at our work from this angle. And we're going to pick up this running thread that sits in between each stitch. So I'm just going to use the tip here to pick that up again. So we're going to be popping our needle into here and picking up in there. And then we'll move on to the next one and pick up in there and in there. Okay. So this will feel, most likely feel quite awkward at first, but once you get the hang of it, it is a really cool technique for picking up stitches from the back of your work, while keeping these ones live, so you can just carry on working with those. So I'm going to grab my blue yarn here, and I'm just going to hold it between my fingers there to get started. Grab the other end of my second needle, so I've still got my first needle attached here. You can take the tips off and pop needle stoppers on the end here, or leave your tips in, which I would do for the ruffle butt socks. If you don't have a second set of tips that match the size you need, just take them off, use needle stoppers to hold your stitches in place, and then pop them back on when you're ready to work with those stitches. So I've picked up that loop between these two stitches, and I'm going to put my other needle tip through there, grab my yarn, open around. So this bit is exactly the same as if you were picking up anywhere else. Now I'm going to move on to the next one. Now, while you're doing this, each time you pick one up, it is going to pull this thread tight on the stitches that are live on your needle, and that's okay, because when we move on to the next one, so again, if you find it hard to see it, feel free to spread your stitches a little wider, and then you'll see that thread that runs in between them. So it's much the same as if you were picking up for a make one left or a make one right. You're picking up into that same bit of thread, but in this case we're creating stitches behind our work. Instead of adding just one extra stitch, we're adding lots of extra stitches. So I'm going to pick up 5 in total here. There he is. So just take your time. There's no hurry. Make a nice cup of tea or coffee, grab some water, whatever your beverage of choice is, and just take your time. It's okay. So now I have 5 live stitches on this needle and all of my live stitches on my original needle. So I can turn my work and work a few rows with my newly picked up stitches if I like, which is what I would do for the pockets. And again, the first couple of rows here are going to feel a little bit tricky, especially if you're working with the stitches you've just cast on, just because it's so close to your original work. But again, just take your time, there's no hurry. No one is sitting over your shoulder watching this, and if they are, well, they shouldn't be. That's rude. Okay. So I'll just do one more row here just to get it a little bit. Oh, that's gone around the back. At the moment. Just to get it a little further away so we can have a look at what's happening here. Oh, that's my tail. Oop. And now I've dropped the tip. This is easier with longer cables, by the way. I'm using quite stiff, short cables, which was probably not my best choice when I was grabbing needles for this, but that's okay. We can make it work. So I'm just going to knit across these stitches. And you can see it's already getting easier now that I've got that little bit of distance between this row and where I picked them up. So I'll just pull that through to get it out of the way. And so you can see that we now have a piece of fabric that sits beautifully behind our original piece of fabric in either direction. So I'll knit an extra row along the silver here, just to show you. So we just push that back on there, just like normal. If you were doing ruffle butt socks, you simply tuck the needle with the newly picked up stitches down inside the cuff, so it's hanging out through the bottom, because that gets it out of the way for you and makes it easier to see which needle you're using. So they'll just hang down like that. And of course, that will be using sock needles, which have a much finer cable than what I'm using here. And then these silver stitches are still on the needle, still alive, and can still be worked in whatever pattern we need. That might be plain stockinette. We might be needing a little bit of lace here that would sit beautifully over those blue stitches and let them show through. We might want to be hiding them. We might have picked up the second set of stitches with exactly the same colour as what we're working with on the front, and that's okay too. There's no need to switch colour when you're picking up those stitches. I've done it here primarily because both of the examples I showed you do that, but also because it's easier to see in the video which are our front stitches and which are our back stitches. And there they are. Stitches in the back, stitches in the front. Beautiful.